Avon and Somerset police have said that body parts have been found at a property in Bristol. Formal identification has not yet been completed, but Becky's parents say they are devastated by the news.
The reason I've come here is to make an arrest of yourself, okay? And what I'm going to do is explain everything here now, okay?
Just put your hands like that for me, alright?
You were at the address at the time that Rebecca, or Becky, I think most people know
Becky,
her as, yeah? Becky.
Or Bex.
Yeah, okay. Do you know her as Becky or Bex?
Usually call her Bex.
Is she safe?
Well, I didn't know where she is, so I'm meant to know.
Is there anything that happened that could be significant in the disappearance of Rebecca? No. Are you absolutely sure? Yes. I know you've got something to tell us. I can see it in your face.
I was just making sure there was nothing, like a weird, significant thing that I hadn't thought of. I don't know.
In today's episode, we'll be discussing a shocking crime committed by a man named Nathan Matthews and his partner, Shauna Hoare. The disgraceful duo would take their incredibly dark and twisted fantasies to an entirely new level, to the point that they would eventually attempt to bring these fantasies to life, ultimately causing someone close to Nathan to lose their life. But before we dive into the crime Nathan and his partner, Shauna, committed, it's important to understand the actions leading up to the gruesome attack against Nathan's stepsister, Rebecca Marie Watts. Rebecca Marie Watts, also known as Becky, was born on June 3, 1998, and was the second child of her parents, with one older brother, Daniel, who was 4 years older than her. Unfortunately, the relationship between Becky's parents, Darren and Tanya, didn't work out, and they chose to end the relationship before Becky was born. Although Becky was initially raised by her mom for the first few years of her life, her father gained custody of her by the time she was 3 years old. Becky's father had remarried a woman named Angie Matthews, who happened to have a son from a previous marriage. Her son, Nathan Matthews, was the oldest of the children, 8 years older than Daniel and 12 years older than Becky. Even so, everyone seemed to get along quite well, and most would describe the family as a happy one. Becky's life was filled with many ups and downs. Although she got along well with her brother Daniel and her stepbrother Nathan, she experienced tremendous bullying at school and would eventually begin struggling with her body image. As she became a teenager, her mental health began to decline. The bullying took a toll on her, as did her relationship with her father and stepmother, Angie. By 2011, when Becky was only 13, Angie started to seek help for her while claiming that she was problematic because she didn't want to go to school and was apparently controlling. Sadly, rather than looking into this a bit more to see what was really going on, Child Services failed to dig deeper to discover the underlying cause of such behavioral issues. When Becky started high school, things began to look up for once. She'd met a guy named Luke, who she really liked, and the two hit it off well enough to even begin dating. Of course, this naturally made her happy and lifted her spirits, which helped improve her mood. At this point, she was also getting along a lot better with Angie. On February 19th, after returning home from a sleepover at a friend's house, Becky chatted with Angie in the kitchen, discussing the typical, everyday things that teenage girls like to discuss. Shortly after the discussion, Angie would leave for a doctor's appointment, and that would be the last time she'd ever hear from Becky. Becky had anxiety and wouldn't be the kind of girl who would run away. In fact, things were better than they'd been in a long time. She had a great relationship with Luke, spent some quality time with a good friend, and even got along with her stepmother better than she had in the past. So what could cause Becky to go missing? The same day, hours after Angie had that initial conversation with Becky, she and her husband, Becky's father, grew worried because they hadn't heard from her. As a matter of fact, no one had heard from her, not even her friends or Luke. He'd even been texting her but wasn't getting a response, which caused him to become worried about Becky's well-being too. After not being able to get in touch with Becky, Darren decided to make the call to 999, the local authorities in the UK. He reported his daughter missing and said that no one had seen her, not her friends or family members. The police decided to visit the home, noticing that not much of Becky's stuff was missing besides her personal laptop, phone, and tablet. Of course, this was quite unusual because if she were going to run away, wouldn't she take clothes, toiletries, or other items with her? Because the likelihood of Becky leaving on her own was slim to none. Her case made headlines, with many wondering where she was and why she'd gone missing. In the meantime, Becky's dad, Darren, attended press conferences where he asked anyone to come forward with any information about Becky's whereabouts. He wanted Becky to know that he loved her and wanted her to get home safely. Sadly, this wouldn't be the outcome. Thousands of people throughout Bristol in the UK volunteered to search for Becky with the hope of finding her alive and well. Many people were hanging up missing posters and putting forth their best effort to spread the word about her missing persons case. Despite the constant searches for Becky, no one could find her, and after a week passed with no updates, police started to believe that this could be a murder investigation instead of just a missing persons case. The investigating officers started interviewing those who knew and were close to Becky, starting with Angie, who'd seen her last before heading off to her appointment. While interrogated, Angie said that Becky wasn't home alone, as she initially mentioned. Instead, Becky was at home with Nathan Matthews, her stepbrother, and his live-in girlfriend, Shauna. The investigators interviewed Nathan and Shauna separately, asking them what they could remember about the last time they'd seen Becky. Both claimed they didn't talk to her but heard the door shut, so they figured she went on her way to go out with her boyfriend or hang out with friends.
Shauna heard the door go, so she was assuming it was Becky going out.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it was Becky going out.
Okay. No one saw her go, but
no.
Just heard the door go,
yeah.
And the assumption that Becky had left the house.
I think we got there about 11ish. The door was locked, so obviously we used the key from underneath the recycling bin. Got in. Heard music upstairs. Assumed Becky had been in then. I went into the kitchen to get a cigarette and went to go outside to have a cigarette. My daughter started whinging because she wanted to come out with me, so I took her down to the garden to help feed the rabbit while I had a cigarette. Probably was about 15-20 minutes. Then we came back up. I went into the kitchen to get a drink, I think it was, and wash my hands. Then I heard the front door slam. Carried on washing my hands, went into the living room. And then I think it wasn't until a lot later on that Angie asked me if Becky had gone out. And I said, yeah, I heard the door go. She must have gone out earlier. Really kind of like, oh, what was that? It was just the door, so Becky would have gone out.
Yeah.
The detectives asked Shauna why she didn't speak with the police in the beginning when she was initially missing. They found it odd that both Shauna and Matthew never made an effort to go to the police station to discuss the situation. According to Shauna, she didn't feel like she was reluctant at all, and she even giggled about it. On the other hand, while interviewing Nathan by himself, the police took note of some of the interesting things he had to say. For example, he claimed he didn't get along well with Becky and believed she was full of herself. He made it seem like he didn't really like her at all. The detectives became super suspicious of both Nathan and Shauna. Something simply didn't feel right.
You were at the address at the time that Rebecca, or Becky, I think most people know
Becky,
her as, yeah? Becky.
Or Bex.
Yeah, okay. Do you know her as Becky or Bex?
Usually call her Bex.
Is she safe?
Well, I didn't know where she is, so I'm meant to know.
Is there anything that happened that could be significant in the disappearance of Rebecca?
No.
Are you absolutely sure?
Yes.
I know you've got something to tell us. I can see it in your face.
I was just making sure there was nothing, like a weird, significant thing that I hadn't thought of. I don't know.
To get to the bottom of what might have happened to Becky, the police sent a forensics team to head out to the family home, where they would come across quite the discovery. During the search, they'd found blood and fingerprints around Becky's door frame. Upon submitting the findings to the lab, police would discover the blood was Becky's. But the fingerprint? It wasn't hers. The fingerprint was Nathan's. These findings resulted in arrest warrants for both Nathan and Shauna.
The reason I've come here is to make an arrest of yourself, okay? And what I'm going to do is explain everything here now, okay?
Just put your hands like that for me, alright?
After arresting the couple, both appeared to be anxious. The police then decided it was time to take a look around Nathan and Shauna's apartment, which was covered in dirt and dust. Ironically, although every other inch of the apartment was messy and dirty, the bathroom was nearly spotless, which yet again caused investigators to wonder what really went on with Becky. During the search, they found receipts for tools, such as a circular saw. To find out who purchased these items, they took the investigation one step further and visited the home goods store, watching the CCTV footage back from the date of that purchase. And lo and behold, it was Nathan standing at the checkout with the circular saw and other supplies. At this point, investigators had reason to believe that Nathan and Shauna committed murder. So they did what investigators typically do when they gather evidence against someone. They presented it directly to Nathan, letting him know about their findings, including the condition of the bathroom compared to the rest of the apartment, the receipt for the circular saw and other supplies, and the CCTV footage of Nathan making the purchase. Likely feeling cornered by investigators, Nathan started to claim that he decided to kidnap Becky to teach her a lesson for being rude to her dad and his mom, Angie. He felt like scaring her would make her change her attitude. Nathan then said that the kidnapping didn't go as planned, with Becky fighting back, which resulted in him attacking her to the point that she couldn't breathe.
This interview is being recorded at Patchford Police Station in Bristol. It is now Tuesday, the 3rd of March 2015, and it's exactly 12 midday. How about if we start with this idea you had about scaring Becky?
I don't know if it was on TV or something like that, but obviously I had a couple of dreams. Prime was obviously once I got her in the car, I was thinking of like a wooded area or whatever, to obviously take her back out, obviously still have the mask on, scare her and, you know, say something along the lines of, you know, you've got to start treating people better, you know, not being a bitch or self-centered, and then like make a threat of, you know, or this could happen again or worse or something like that. Obviously walk away after, without obviously.
Nathan acted like his idea to scare Becky was totally normal and acceptable. He continued to victim blame while detailing his kidnapping plan. He'd even gone as far as to explain how he ended her life, putting his hands around her neck until she could no longer breathe. However, he failed to mention what he did in the aftermath of her death. Nathan essentially obliterated Becky's body using the saw he'd purchased at the home goods store before stuffing her in a bin and placing her in a shed. He did the unthinkable. While most would assume it ends there, this case was anything but over. As interrogations continued and investigators started looking into Nathan and Shauna's phones and computers, they stumbled upon shocking information that no one could imagine they would ever find. Nathan and Shauna regularly exchanged predatory messages about kidnapping girls. They both seemed heavily interested in teenagers and discussed the possibility of kidnapping one of those girls to use for erotic activities. While they constantly discussed the idea of kidnapping girls they were interested in, they never actually went through with the act at that point. Instead, they decided to turn one of their fantasies into reality by persuading a friend to join them in the bedroom. However, this didn't seem to satisfy their urge or bring their fantasies to life. So, in February, Nathan Matthews decided to take things much further by targeting Becky, who was just 16 years old at the time. It appears that Nathan was never fond of Becky. He was 15 when she was 3 years old and probably felt jealous of the attention she received. In fact, during those visits with therapists, Becky spoke out about his relentless bullying, but nothing was ever done about it. It seems that most just thought it was a simple sibling rivalry and nothing more. However, this was likely one of the reasons Becky was acting out in her teenage years. She knew Nathan didn't like her, nor did his girlfriend Shauna. It turns out that Nathan meticulously planned the kidnapping and death of Becky. He'd gone as far as to put together a kidnap kit before taking the breath out of her, using a knife to attack her, and then transferring her body to his home with Shauna's help. You would think they'd be anxious and quite possibly even sick to their stomachs over the situation, but instead, the couple decided to order takeout and play Monopoly. They would wait another day before using the circular saw to dismember Becky before hiding her remains. In November 2015, Nathan Matthews was found guilty of Becky's murder and was sentenced to life in prison with eligibility for parole after 33 years. Shauna Hoare was sentenced to just 17 years in prison for her role in the crime. On September 1st, 2023, after serving half her sentence, Shauna was officially released from prison and is a free woman. So, what are your thoughts on this case? Do you believe that the sentencing for both Nathan and Shauna was fair and just? Is it right that Shauna was heavily involved in the cold and calculated attack against Becky, yet somehow now gets to live a free life? Thank you all for joining us on this gripping journey through the darkest corners of the human psyche. If you enjoyed this video and want to uncover more spine-chilling tales, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss a single episode. Remember, truth is often stranger than fiction, and our mission is to bring you the untold stories that lurk in the shadows. So, make sure you're subscribed to our channel to stay up to date with our latest investigations, in-depth analysis, and shocking revelations. Furthermore, if you have a thirst for more mysteries and unsolved cases, we've curated a playlist of our most compelling episodes just for you. Click on the screen to dive deeper into the dark abyss of human nature and explore the enigmas that continue to perplex us. Lastly, we want to express our deepest gratitude to our incredible community of true crime enthusiasts. Your passion, engagement, and comments fuel our determination to bring you the most compelling content. Together, we stand as seekers of truth in the face of darkness. As we conclude this chapter, remember to stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe.